Hey, it's happening. I'm live. It's the Nazarite bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. Still, this cough is still persisting, not getting any worse, but still persisting. I haven't been doing that much to get rid of it on my end, I must admit. It's a bit of a nuisance, but it's tolerable. I'm hoping it'll go away on its own, but I might have to see someone, whether it's an MD or an herbalist or I don't know what, at some time. I wanted to just go spontaneously. I wasn't sure if I was going to broadcast tonight or not, and I had this time now, which was kind of quiet and silent. Jonathan, just do it, even if it's for a minute, even if it's for a quick question, that you're going to answer. It's still broadcasting, and it still hopefully serves a purpose and has value and meaning. So Taylor 26 asked, "How did the rabbinic Jews define the new moon? Is it when the moon is completely dark and invisible, or is it when the moon has just a tiny sliver of a crescent?" To which I answered that traditionally, right, in the halachic Orthodox rabbinic way, the birth of the new moon occurs when the sliver first appears. It occurs in increments which change monthly. I'm not sure about the calculations, but I know that it changes monthly, and that it's not when it's invisible, right? At that time when they used to have witnesses who would show up at Beit Yazek, if I'm not mistaken, as it was known, and they would come and testify before the court that they saw the new moon. And then the Av Bedin, right, the master, let's say, of the court would say sanctified or holy or sacred, mikudash or mikudeshet, and all of the people gathered would say mikudash, mikudash, right? Sanctified, sanctified. And then right then and there, people would be sent out to the diaspora 6 months out of the year in order to tell them when the first of the new moon is, because that has bearing on the different holidays and the way things fall out during the year. So Taylor 26 continues and says, Mishnah Rosh Hashanah in page 18 of the Jewish calendar by Rabbi David Feinstein confirm your answer. So I was correct. The Samaritan calendar, he says, starts with the invisible moon. The ancient Egyptian lunar calendar also happens to start with the invisible moon, like the Samaritan calendar. I read an interesting book, he said, that this is supposedly the pre-exilic calendar of Israel before the Babylonian exile. Not saying it for certain, but I thought I'd share it. When God, he says, when God sets the first month of the calendar to Moses, it is specifically done in Egypt. He cites the verse in Exodus 12, and he says the calendar possibly has influence from Egypt because that is partially Moses' upbringing. The other interesting thing, says Taylor 26, is that the dark moon means that the sun, earth, and moon are in complete alignment together. They are three. The three are in conjunction. If you are God creating the world in Genesis 1, it would make sense that you would create the earth in alignment with the sun and the moon in a straight line. That sounds orderly to me. Right, the fact that they are spherical to the degree that they are, but in a straight line, that speaks very much to the nature of the world and God's revelation. That idea of the sphere and the straight line. Taylor 26 continues and says, I'm not saying we Jews need to observe this old calendar, not at all. I'm just saying that it's interesting that this could be the original calendar of Israel. The Samaritans were able to hang on to this old calendar because they were not exiled to Babylon. They managed to stay in their land and keep their original calendar. Well, it was the king of Assyria, right? And then that whole thing, and the people switched. Yes, that's right. The same thing, says Taylor 26, has occurred with Christianity. The Julian calendar was reformed with the Gregorian calendar in the 16th century. It was also a minor modification of that old calendar. The Samaritan calendar and Rabbinic calendar are almost the same, except for being a day off from each other. The Samaritan pre-exilic lunar calendar starts with a dark, invisible moon. The Rabbinic Babylon calendar starts with the sliver of the crescent. I should think that even if there is a good chance that you're absolutely right, and that was the original calendar, and this is something that was changed, them coming back from Babylon having that idea of changing it from being an invisible moon into a sliver, meaning something that is not straight but spherical, with everything that that entails. It's like this new phase that is beginning in the life of the Hebrew people, right after that original exile, when the coming back to Zion, right, with Ezra, Nehemiah, and all of the people there, and it was tough going. So many things were lost, and then later Rome and everything. So this idea of the calendar and of time and of sanctifying certain times, and it is Israel which, let's say, imbues it to the degree that Israel does keep its holidays. They imbue the people imbue the days with this certain. Well, let's put it this way: they imbue the day with a certain quality by being active and sanctifying the day, setting it apart, making it holy. And the just last week, right? Last week's Torah portion ended, or the week before that ended with the. No, I think it was last week. Ended with, or close to the end of it, was when was Moses going through, right, at God's bidding, starting with the Shabbat, going through the different holidays, the three pilgrimage holidays, the first of the seventh month, currently known as Rosh Hashanah, and the 10th, which is Yom Kippur, the holiday of atonement, Chag Kippurim. We sanctify the day. We are the ones who make it happen. The divine revelation instructed Moses, these are unique times. These are special times. You want to take advantage of these times. Now, you want to take advantage of time at large, yes. But this idea of having specific days or periods of time set apart, much like in nature, it occurs with the seasons, where there's a natural progression there of life, of death and rebirth, of nature and all of that. Everything that entails. The same thing is that's a mirror, right? The physical world being a mirror of the spiritual world. The different changes and the cyclic nature of the spiritual change of seasons affects life here in the world, and that's, I'm not phrasing it properly, but the reason why God in the Torah sets aside certain days, like God is above time and space. What does God care about setting aside days? What does that mean, to set aside days? It means pay attention, make the days count. Certain times have an ability. And even if you consider the entire Torah a myth and there is no God, you can't deny that nature has its change of seasons and its progression and its different, a time for everything. So the Torah is instructing us in this way to to set certain times and days apart, and in doing so, go along with nature, because some holidays are literally, right, agricultural holidays of the harvest and of picking the last sheaves up, and everything having to do with the land, things having to do with freedom of the land, the Yovel, right, the Jubilee. There's there's a lot there. I'm not sure if I'm making any sense. But when Taylor 26 speaks of the calendars and of the way that the calendar may have changed, I see that as something that has a direct connection with what happened after that. So now when we sanctify the new moon, right, with everything that that means, including sending out those folk to the diaspora and having certain times and certain days, it goes back many times to the new moon. Certain holidays, right, on the 10th, on the 15th of the month. So having those calculations, right, and having that idea of when the moon is starting to appear, the moon symbolizing Israel, the moon symbolizing Shekhinah, right, the divine feminine presence, the moon, the moon, which, if we look back at Genesis, starts, oh, pardon me, starts off, come on, Jonathan, get it together. Starts off in the first verse, right, as two great lights, me'orot gdolim, and then it was the great light, or the big light, and the smaller light. The radiance of the moon was dimmed, and that's a whole other can of worms. But Isaiah alludes to this when he says that the sun will shine, the moon will shine like the sun, and the sun will shine like the 7 days of creation. Hmm. Setting aside time. And even the elements, right? The heavenly bodies, which we know right now, the moon is just a hunk of rock. The, I think, prevailing theory right now is that the Earth was bombarded with meteors, and all of the chunks of dust and rock that just blew off into outer space came together in the course of time to form this solid thing orbiting, right, our satellite, the moon. It's like, what, you're going to attribute some sort of divine energy or something to, or some significance or sacred nature to a hunk of rock that's orbiting this little planet, third stone from the sun, and to that I say yes. It doesn't have to be precisely what the Torah says or not. You could argue but the idea of setting aside time and setting it apart for a unique and specific purpose, goal, that's not a bad thing. To go along with nature and to try and be more one with nature, if to use the cliche, not a bad thing. Now, maybe I'm like romanticizing this idea of the calendar, but I see that as a wonderful thing. It's a great teaching, right? To set aside days. I mean, Shabbat is one of my favorite covenants, and it's something that happens at least once a week. And it's something so amazing to sanctify it when it comes in with candles, with blessings, with song, with food, to sanctify it with love, and then to sort of see it out like a good, right, like a good host would, to see it out with candles and with this idea of sanctifying the times is not unique to the Hebrew faith or to the Torah, which is why I say the Torah has something that teaches us how to live or how to think or how to, right? Because people say it's a history book, people say it's an instruction book, people say no, 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 it's none of those things, it's just the word of God. People say so many things about the five books of Moses and the Bible. And I can see it from many, many different angles. Not like fully, in the sense that I have as much exposure to the Torah as I've had. So, yeah, like I've said before, you can say that it's all a myth and a bunch of crap. There's still a lot to learn from that crap. It's thousands of years old. That says something. Doesn't necessarily mean it's true or just or righteous, but it means take a look. There could be something there that you maybe don't know. There could be something there that will get your brain turning in a certain way. And I'm not talking about organized religion and worship and rituals. I'm talking about how is it that you want to conduct yourself in this world. Forget about all the commandments, right? Go back to Genesis, go back to Eden. What is it that you're doing? What fingers are you pointing towards yourself and others? That whole thing, that whole trip. All right. See if there's anything in the chat. No, nothing in the chat. So I'm going, oh, somebody's here. Hello, hi, hello there. Now, ah, come on. As I said, I didn't do it justice with this answer. It was very sprawling and cough filled, but I wanted to broadcast. It was important to me, and I'm glad that I did. Hopefully, once this cough is gone, I'll be doing it more regularly. I said that last week. I said it the week before. I'm not able to get back on a good schedule. Some of it's completely my fault, and the kind of distance, but I don't want to. I want to make up that distance. I want to keep broadcasting. I want to keep having dialogues. I want to keep learning more, speaking more, learning more from you guys. Hopefully soon I'll be back. Until then, until next time, rather. See ya.